Good afternoon, Namaskar. I, Kriti Vatera, would like to welcome all the teachers, learners, educators, students to CIET NCERT's live phone-in program. And you are watching us live on VmVideocon Channel number 9. This session is going to be for Standard 9 students. English is the subject which we will be dealing with in this particular session. And the expert who has joined us for today's discussion, I would like to introduce Dr. Amit Ranjan from CIET NCERT. Hello, we welcome you to VmVideocon.
Thank you so much.
And before we start with today's interaction and discussion on this session, I would like to remind you here that if you have any questions, any queries, then do let us know. Dial on our toll-free numbers. Numbers would be 1-800-111-265 and the other number is 1-800-112-199. To watch the live streaming of this program, kindly log into our official YouTube channel NCERT Official, and there also in the live chat box you can send all your suggestions and questions. Certainly we will be taking up all of them in the last segment of the program, and we will be discussing with our expert. And there is one more medium through which you can connect to us. And you can also mail your questions and suggestions to dth.class9th@ciet.nic.in. So let's begin with today's session, where we will be discussing a poem, The Duck and the Kangaroo. I welcome you again, Dr. Ranjan.
Thank you so much.
So what are we going to discuss in this session today?
Well, this poem, The Duck and the Kangaroo, which is in the text Beehive, it's chapter number 7. It's a poem by Edward Lear. It's a very old poem. It's from 1870.
Okay.
And Edward Lear is one of the most famous poets in terms of nonsense verse. We'll also discuss what nonsense verse is. But let's look at the poem first.
Sure.
So, Duck and the Kangaroo, from the book Nonsense Drolleries from 1889, first published in 1870 by the poet Edward Lear, and the original illustrations of the 1889 book are by William Foster, which we'll see in a minute. And as I pointed out, it's from Beehive, chapter 7. So, these are the 1870 version. These are illustrations drawn by Edward Lear himself, the poet. And he drew 3 illustrations. Let's go through them.
These are the illustrations by the poet itself.
By the poet himself in the 1870 version.
Very nice.
And now let's look at the poem itself. This is the 1889 book, which you can also download from Project Gutenberg for free. Let's look at the poem. Said the duck to the kangaroo, "Good gracious, how you hop over the fields and the water too, as if you would never stop. My life is a bore in this nasty pond, and I long to go out in the world beyond. I wish I could hop like you," said the duck to the kangaroo. "Please give me a ride on your back," said the duck to the kangaroo. "I would sit quite still and say nothing but quack the whole long day through. And we'd go to the D and the Jelly Bowl E, over the land and over the sea. Please take me a ride or do," said the duck to the kangaroo. Said the kangaroo to the duck, "This requires some reflection. Perhaps on the whole it might bring me luck. And there seems but one objection, which is, if you let me speak so bold, your feet are unpleasantly wet and cold, and it would probably give me the rheumatiz," said the kangaroo. Said the duck, "As I sate on the rocks, I have thought over that completely, and I bought 4 pairs of worsted socks, which fit my web feet neatly. And to keep out the cold, I've bought a cloak, and every day a cigar I'll smoke, and to follow my own dear true love of kangaroo." Said the kangaroo, "I'm ready and in the moonlight pale, but to balance me well, dear duck, sit steady and quite at the end of my tail." So away they went with a hop and a bound, and they hopped the whole world 3 times round, and who so happy, oh who, as the duck and the kangaroo. So that is the poem. And now let us Isn't it a wonderful poem?
It is beautiful indeed.
Now let us look at the poem once again, line by line.
Yeah.
And so we can explain it quickly, and then we'll discuss the themes. Said the duck to the kangaroo, good gracious, how you hop over the fields and the water too, as if you would never stop. So there's this little duck who is kind of jealous of the kangaroo, because the kangaroo is a sturdy animal and he's hopping all over the place, whereas the duck is stuck in a little pond, and so the duck is all admiration for the kangaroo,
Yeah.
that he can go over field and water too, and nothing can stop him. Whereas my life is bored in this nasty pond. So the duck is rather bored in this little pond,
Yeah.
and he would like to go and see the whole world, the wide world beyond. I wish I could hop like you, said the duck to the kangaroo. So the first stanza is about the wish of the duck to get out of the little pond and to be able to hop like the kangaroo, to be able to go and see the world. Let's look at the second stanza now. Please give me a ride on your back, said the duck to the kangaroo. So in the second stanza, the duck pleads to the kangaroo to please give him a ride. And now he kind of entices the kangaroo, because he has nothing really to give to the kangaroo. It's not a mutually beneficial relationship
Yeah.
till here, and so he tries to give the reasons why he should take him, and also that he would not disturb him. I would sit quite still and say nothing but quack the whole of the long day through. And we'd go to the D and the jelly bow lee. So these are imaginary places, D and jelly bow lee, and look at the beautiful illustration over here in which the kangaroo is flying.
Flying,
which
yeah.
does not really happen. The kangaroo hops. This is the
But the imagination of a poet.
imagination of the poet.
Yeah.
And also this is the strength of nonsense verse to exaggerate and caricature things.
Right.
And so we'd go to the D and the jelly bow lee, over the land and over the sea, please take me a ride or do, said the duck to the kangaroo. So the duck has put his case. He's
Yeah.
pleaded to the kangaroo in the first two stanzas. In the third one, the kangaroo replies saying, said the kangaroo to the duck, this requires some reflection. Perhaps on the whole it might bring me luck. So the kangaroo also thinks that if he has a traveling companion, maybe it will be lucky, maybe it will be fortunate for him. But at the same time, he has an objection, which is that, so he says, which is, if you let me speak so bold,
Yeah.
your feet are unpleasantly wet and cold. So the duck, obviously staying in the water, has has wet feet and cold feet, and would probably give me the rheumatiz. Rheumatiz is rheumatism over here, said the kangaroo. Said the duck, as I sat on the rocks, I have thought over that completely. So the duck already is prepared for that question, and I have bought 4 pairs of worsted socks. So he's gone and bought socks to cover his feet so that they are not wet and they do not disturb the kangaroo. And to keep out the cold, I have bought a cloak. He's also bought a cloak, a coat, a long overcoat. And every day a cigar I'll smoke, also to keep away the cold. All to follow my own dear true love of kangaroo. So here he changes the tone. Till now he's been saying that he will wear the socks and that he won't talk much so as not to disturb the kangaroo. But now he serenades the kangaroo. He says to the kangaroo that I'll be with my true love, which is you. And finally, the kangaroo agrees. Said the kangaroo, I'm ready. And in the moonlight pale, but to balance me well, dear duck, sit steady. So they would start by the moonlight on a night, but he entreats the duck to sit steady and quite at the end of my tail. And so to keep the balance, he should sit at the end of the tail. So away they went with a hop and a bound, and they hopped the world 3 times round. So now they are great friends, and 3 times they go round the whole world. And who so happy, oh who, as the duck and the kangaroo. So it ends very happily that the two are friends and they have hopped the world 3 times round. So that's roughly the meaning of the poem. On the surface, it's a straightforward poem with no difficult words, and it's great rhyme. It's set to meter, so it can be sung very well. It's a humorous poem for children on the surface. How do you like the poem?
Oh, it was beautiful indeed. I really liked it. And the way you explained it was beautiful to witness. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, let us look at some things over here. Since I told you that it's an 1870 poem,
Yeah.
Kangaroo was a brand new phenomenon at that point of time.
Okay.
Kangaroos are as old as the earth itself is, but for civilizations, for the Europeans,
Yeah.
it was a brand new phenomenon, because Captain Cook landed in the ship Endeavour in Australia in 1788. So viewers, you would know that kangaroo is associated with Australia. So when you think of the Australian cricket team, you
Right.
think kangaroos and cricket only, but there's a lot more to Australia. Anyway, so while analyzing the themes of this poem, we'll also look at this angle, why is it the kangaroo and the duck, specifically these two animals. But there was a huge fascination for kangaroo when this poem was written in 1870, because Australia had been discovered just about 70-80 years ago, and there was this animal which nobody had seen before, which could hop and which kept its little ones in a pouch. And you would know that kangaroo and this class of animals, they are called marsupials. They are in between, so in the Darwinian scheme of evolution, as you would read in your biology and science classes, marsupials are infra-mammals, what was before the mammals, as in mammals, the children develop within the womb. In marsupials, they are half developed within the womb, and the rest of it develops in the pouch. And so you've seen various pictures of kangaroo babies in pouches. So there are lots of animals, marsupials, which are found in Australia and Americas. As here are some examples like the opossum, kangaroo, koala, Tasmanian devil, wombat, etc. So this would be a good exercise, viewers, to find out which animals are marsupials. And there's one another interesting animal called the Phascolotherium, which was considered a marsupial because, and so this is a book from 1870, the place marked in the red is the Phascolotherium, carrying its baby in a pouch on its back, as you can see, and little swans. So the writer says that seeing the little swans and the Phascolotherium, he remembered the poem The Duck and the Kangaroo. Okay, let's move forward with the form of the poem. As you have seen, the rhyme scheme in the poem is A, B, A, B, C, C, which is the first and the third line rhyme, the second and the fourth line rhyme, and the fifth and the sixth rhyme. So once again, for a quick example, said the duck to the kangaroo, good gracious how you hop over the fields and the water too. So kangaroo rhymes with two. Good gracious how you hop, as if you would never stop. The second and the fourth line, they rhyme. And the fifth and the sixth. My life is a bore in this nasty pond, and I long to go out in the world beyond. And so this is how rhyme scheme is mentioned. So it's A, B, A, B. A rhymes with A, B rhymes with B, C rhymes with C. Other things in the form of this poem are alliteration. We'll see it in a minute. Alliteration is when the same consonant sounds are repeated. Enjambment would be a new word for you. Enjambment is when where a line should end logically, it does not end over there, but continues into the next line, and so the two lines have to be spoken together, and there's a rush in the line. So it's a poetic device that's used. And trimeter, the meter of this poem, which we'll see in a while, and also what nonsense verse is. So examples of alliteration in this poem, Kriti.
Yeah.
Good gracious, how you hop. So G goes with G and H goes with H.
H, right.
And so you almost feel that the kangaroo is hopping. Good gracious,
Right.
how you hop. And in line 27 and 28 again, and I bought 4 pairs of worsted socks which fit my web fit neatly. So here you can see an alternating of the W and the F sounds. Worsted socks which fit my web fit neatly.
Right.
And so it's also sort of evocative of knitting, and so you understand that it's socks. Okay. Enjambment, what I was talking about, that a line does not end where it should end, but it runs on into the
It
into
extends to the next line.
next
Yeah.
one, and so there's a rush in how you speak it.
Yeah.
And would probably give me the rheumatiz, said the kangaroo. So you do not pause at
Pause
the
there in
pause
the
there.
end. Yeah.
And let's look at the second example over there. All to follow my own dear true love of kangaroo. So here it's true love, and love goes into the next line.
Next line.
And so this is a poetic device to emphasize a sort of a rush as well as continuity. Trimeter, I'll just give you an example of, so this is not really needed for class 9 students. This you'll probably study later when you're in undergrad and stuff. But just to get a sense of how to enunciate the poem, how to read it aloud, here's an example. And it's all metered, so it can be sung.
Okay.
So, for example,
But in language, Dr. Ranjan, anything is like for 9th standard students itself, it's the base we are making. So
of course, and which is why
so
I've
explaining
included
them,
which is why I've included it over
it's
here.
worth, I guess, explaining
Absolutely,
them.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
let's look at how to pronounce these lines.
Yeah.
And so they're all metered. They are in a rhythm, and so let's see. Said the duck to the kangaroo, good gracious, how you hop over the fields and the water too, as if you never would stop. And so this is how this this poem would be sung, and the various song versions of this poem as well. Very good. Now let's look at some of the themes.
Okay. So trimeter is basically the poetic. What
There are
should we
3
say?
meters
The
in this, so
way.
it can be a pentameter, it can be a hexameter. So there are
Okay.
3 meters in this, and which is why it's a trimeter. As you can see, it's 3 divisions in every line. Okay, let's.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the next is
let's look at the.
right, and our expert Dr. Ranjan is explaining beautifully about the poem "The Duck and the Kangaroo." Viewers,
Let's look at the themes
Yeah.
quickly. What are the themes? Obviously, one of the themes is the idea of wandering and wondering. The duck
Okay.
wonders what the big wide world is like, and he wants to wander the world. And so this is called wanderlust, when you have a lust
Wanderlust.
to wander
Yeah.
the whole world. And as we saw, there's an inherent journey within this poem, which is from self-indulgent motives of the duck to eventually a friendship that develops between the duck and the kangaroo. So initially it is his selfish motive that he wants to get out of the pond. He's tired and jaded and bored within the pond that he is in. And so he's using the kangaroo as a conduit, as a means to get out to the world. And so initially he gives excuses that he'll wear socks to hide his wet feet and so on. But later we see that he declares love for the kangaroo, and the kangaroo also reciprocates, saying that he would have a good companion. And eventually we see a happy ending to the poem where they roam around the world thrice. However, there is definitely a compromise in the matter, and so this is also a message of camaraderie, that in friendship you have to compromise a little bit to be able to achieve something. And so even though the kangaroo may be giving more in this relationship, there is a sort of camaraderie which is eventually mutually beneficial for both. But if we flip this whole idea of it as a poem with a happy ending, We also know that Edward Lear was a bitter critic of colonialism. So for young students, colonialism is the domination of one nation over another. So for example, India was a British colony, so India was occupied by Britain. Similarly, Australia was occupied by Britain. And so, even though this seems like a harmless children's rhyme, there could be a lot in it. We saw that kangaroo was an animal of fascination, and Australia. So if we look at this whole thing as the kangaroo representing Australia, so Australia was inhabited for 40,000 years, 50,000 years, unbroken civilization by aboriginal people, by tribal people. In 1788, the British went and occupied it, and after that, as now you know that they're mostly people of the European race, mostly British people over there, you don't really see aboriginals. And so, if we use it as a metaphor, and most of the language is metaphor. For example, if you come complaining to me that you said such and such thing about me, and I say, but I have no hand in it. So, one does not speak with hands, one speaks with mouth. So I would have spoken about you to someone and you heard it. So there's an act of speech and hearing involved. There's no hand involved. But you say I did not have a hand in it because it's metaphorically the hand, because we do most things with hand. Similarly, kangaroo here can be a metaphor for Australia itself, for tribal people, for aboriginal people who are subjugated by people who came to conquer. And the design of the poem is such that it can apply to various situations. It just doesn't apply to the situation in 1870. It's very relevant even now, which is a thing you must think about. And so, if kangaroo is Australia, it's the aboriginal people of Australia, and the duck is aptly British because Britain is an island. I'm sorry we didn't put a map over here, but Britain is an island, and so Britain is duck. It hasn't seen the world, and so was Europe. It wanted to explore, wanted to find out where India was. Eventually Columbus found where America was, and by mistake they found out Australia. So they wanted to get out of their pond like this duck and travel the world. And so the duck, if you consider the British people as duck over here, supplicating to kangaroo, which is the native people of any place, like the East India Company came to India and supplicated to the kings over here in India to do business, and eventually they grabbed power. And similarly, the duck is that colonial power, that foreign power, that subjugating power, which comes and appeals to the kangaroo, to the tribal people, and eventually the tribal person agrees with the friendship. But as we have seen in the poem, it's a one-way friendship, that the kangaroo does not achieve much out of this relationship. It's the duck who gets free and gets to roam around the world. We do not know what benefit the kangaroo gets. So Edward Lear very smartly has put it, even though it's a happy ending. This is the way a lot of children's poems also work. Do we still have time?
We have around 5 minutes left.
Okay. So which we already did, like to give the example of the monkey and the crocodile story that we all know, that the monkey befriends the crocodile in Panchtantra, and eventually the crocodile's wife says, if the monkey's berries, jamuns are so sweet,
then
how much would his liver be? And eventually, so the duck and the kangaroo is not so grim a tale, but still there are shades of it. So what I'm trying to tell you is that a poem can be read in several ways. So it's humorous, but at the same time, it's also a deep satire at the establishment. A companion poem in this book, which we'll end with, is The Owl and the Pussycat. So there are two poems in this book of 1889. I'll quickly read this poem, and then we'll see these two pictures, and maybe we can take some questions.
Right.
Okay. The owl and the pussycat went to the sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar, "Oh lovely pussy, pussy my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, what a beautiful pussy you are." Pussy said to the owl, "You elegant fowl, How charmingly sweet you sing, oh let us be married. Too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows. And there in the wood a piggy wig stood with a ring at the end of his nose. His nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives in the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon, and hand in hand they danced in the sand, and they danced by the light of the moon. The moon, they danced by the light of the moon. I'll show you 2 quick pictures. So this, from the same book, The Owl and the Pussycat Went to the Sea in a beautiful pea green boat. This is how it opens. So Kriti, what do you think? Who is the boy and who is the girl in this relationship between the owl and the pussycat?
It's quite tricky, the kind of conversation they've had, and it is ending with a piggy also. I mean, I was...
so the owl is serenading the pussycat.
Yeah.
So you would think the owl is
Owl
a
could
man.
be the male, yeah.
And pussycat, everybody knows, is female.
Cat is female.
But unfortunately, if you look at the picture, or fortunately,
Yeah.
Just let's look at this picture. In the end, you see that the cat is a male and the owl is a female. And so, even with this very simple nursery sort of rhyme, Edward Lear has managed to break the standard ideas, stereotypes of gender that we
Right.
hold. And if you read the poem closely, you will see that it was always that the pussycat was a man.
Who was the male? Okay.
And the owl is a female. And so similarly, this is for our friends to think that how many things we think of in very stereotypical ways. If you think of a nurse, you would think a female. If you think of a doctor, you would think of a male. But the 2 professions can be taken up by anyone, right?
Absolutely.
There are lady doctors and male nurses, for example. And similarly, this is an exercise
Similarly,
for
chefs
you.
also. See, cooking is all times associated with females, but if we talk about the chefs
It's
globally,
always, yeah.
I can count on my fingers they are males. So
yeah, but also when you think of a chef, you think of male because the word is associated. So the male is associated with, let's say, economic production,
right.
whereas women are supposed to be at home. So this is, so learners and friends, you must think about various gender stereotypes that we have in our mind and how to break them, how we think of certain ways, how we think of certain words as associated with a certain gender, but that is not the case. So this is the sort of homework for you.
And you can share while after doing whatever Amit Ranjanji has said. And Amitji, witnessing your session was so mesmerizing for me. The way you explained the poems, both the poems, it was so nice to have you today. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And viewers, remain connected to PM eVidya because in next session we will be discussing a science topic for you. Remain connected. We are coming just in a short while. Thank you.